This year marks an important expansion for Ford's special vehicle team. To complement the success achieved by the SVT Mustang Cobra in our vehicle lineup, the special vehicle team is launching an all-new model, the 1998 SVT Contour. Hi, I'm John Clore of the Ford Special Vehicle Team. Simply put, the SVT Contour is a compact sports sedan that rivals Germany's finest at a remarkably affordable price. It also represents several firsts for an SVT product. For example, it's our first front-wheel drive SVT product. It's our first four-door. As a V6, it's the first time an SVT product was powered by something other than a V8. It's also the first time that SVT has targeted a product toward import buyers. Now, there's no question that actually driving the SVT Contour will help you appreciate it. But to understand how this car measures up against its European competition, it's best if we start with the heart and soul of this car, the hardware. We'll take you through the SVT Contour inside and out, both under the hood and underneath the car itself. Not only will we look at the numbers, but we'll also examine in detail our exclusive 2.5-liter high-output V6 powertrain. Now let's get started.
The 1998 SVT Contour has many unique features versus the base SE model, and the exterior, the interior, and functional features. It comes in 3 different colors, red, silver, and black, and it has a unique midnight blue interior. On the front end of the vehicle, we have the new freshened 1998 Contour hood, headlamps, and grille opening. The headlamps are a compound reflector design, and the grille opening insert has unique SVT wire mesh design. Front fascia is also unique for the SVT, and it gives it an aggressive look. It is lowered to the ground and minimizes the amount of air underneath the vehicle and improves the high-speed stability. The fog lamps are integrated into the fascia, and they're standard on the SVT, and it's similar to the SVT Cobra Mustang. The lower grille opening is twice the size of the current SE model and improves the engine cooling. And it also incorporates the wire mesh design similar to the upper grille opening. Now let's take a look over on the side of the vehicle. The front fender has a different badge. It identifies the 195 horsepower, high output, 24-valve, 2.5-liter V6 that is standard in the SVT Contour. Also on the side of the vehicle, we have unique rocker panel moldings that enhance the aggressive styling of the vehicle and also adds to the lowered appearance of the vehicle. At the rear of the vehicle, we have a new deck lid design that has smooth and clean lines without the use of a spoiler. The reflex and the taillights are also new for 1998, and the car is identified with an SVT badge at the lower left corner of the deck lid. The rear fascia is unique to the SVT, continues the aggressive styling and the lower appearance of the vehicle. The cutouts highlight the polished stainless steel tips from the quasi-dual exhaust system. The lower opening includes a wire mesh grille insert that carries on the same theme as from the front of the car. Now let's go around and look at the wheels and tires. To improve the handling and the steering of the SVT Contour, different and larger tires and wheels have been used. The tires are Goodyear GSC 205/55 by 16. They are Z-rated tires to accommodate the 143 mile-an-hour top speed. The aggressive-looking 5-spoke design wheels are 6.5 inches wide and 16 inches in diameter with a unique SVT center cap. The open design showcases the disc brake components and also aids in brake cooling. And speaking of brakes, all SVT Contours have 4-wheel vented disc brakes with the ABS system. All rotors have a Dacrymet coating on them to maintain the showroom appearance. And now let's talk about the interior. The front bucket seats have perforated leather Warwick grain seating surfaces. The unique side bolsters improve lateral support during aggressive cornering. Also, standard is the 10-way power adjust driver's seat. All these features make the SVT Contour a pleasure to drive around town or on long trips. The rear seats have the same perforated leather seating surfaces as the front seats. The unique bolsters provide bucket seat-like comfort for the rear seat passengers. All 4 interior door trim panels have a special Warwick grain insert which matches the seats. The standard 5-speed transmission includes a leather-wrapped shift knob which complements the leather shift boot and parking brake boots. There is even a padded flip-up armrest. The steering wheel also uses the same Warwick grain leather as the seats and provides a unique feel in the driver's hands. The instrument panel includes a full analog instrumentation package with SVT white-faced gauges. The floor mats even have SVT embroidered in them. Under the hood is a 195 horsepower high-output 24-valve 2.5-liter V6 engine. The engine shows off a special black powder paint on the intake manifold, a special SVT badge, and a conical air cleaner. In summary, we've shown you numerous design changes from the base SE model in exterior, interior, and the functional areas. These changes make the 1998 SVT Contour look as good as it goes.
Hello. Today I would like to highlight some of the unique powertrain features of the 1998 SVT Contour's exclusive 195 horsepower 2.5-liter V6 engine. Our goal was to optimize the performance of the 2.5-liter Duratec engine, which is already recognized as a world-class powertrain for smooth, quiet operation as well as reliability and durability. The powertrain team took a systems engineering approach to maximize the entire powertrain. Designing a smooth, straight, less restrictive system allows us to move air into, through, and out of the engine more efficiently. This translates to increased horsepower and improved performance. As this chart shows, a 77 horsepower per liter figure ranks this engine as having the highest specific output of any production engine manufactured in North America. Beginning with the air cleaner openings, you'll notice that the larger opening in the SVT air cleaner allows air to move through the conical designed air cleaner more smoothly. This conical design is utilized in the Mustang Cobra as well as the Mark 8 application. A side benefit of this conical design system is that it's 30% less restrictive than the flat panel design shown here. Moving to the throttle bodies, the throttle body on my right is used on the SVT Contour. This one is used on the SE model. The 60mm design is similar to that used on the 3-liter Taurus Sable Duratec engine. Another unique feature of this throttle body is the cam cable design. This design allows the driver to activate the throttle and open it more quickly and allows more precise feedback to the driver for control. As you can see, the upper intake manifold is painted black for easy identification at the engine and assembly plants. In order to smooth all runner passages, a process called extrude hone is used. Shown in the cutaway here, you can see the smoother surfaces of the intake runners. This helps improve airflow as well as distribution throughout the manifold. The lower intake manifold uses larger ports for increased airflow. These ports are approximately 2 millimeters larger than the current production unit used today. Looking to the cutaway section of the cylinder head, you'll notice that the secondary port is quite smooth. We've also incorporated the extrude hone process here as well. These ports are used in operating the engine at speeds above 3,400 RPM. These polished runners allow air to enter the combustion chamber in a smooth, controlled manner, contributing to better swirl. I mentioned that the extrude hone process is used to smooth the upper intake manifold runners and the secondary ports on the cylinder head. This process helps air move very quickly into the engine. This process, normally associated with racing and high-performance applications, is being used by Ford for the first time in a production-based application. Let's take a look at how the extrude hone process works. Extrude-Hone invented the abrasive flow machining process initially for deburring and finishing complex passageways on aircraft components. The Extrude-Hone process uses a polymer carrier mixed with abrasives to gently and evenly abrade areas where it's forced to flow. On induction system components, the process enlarges and smooths passages, resulting in improved engine breathing and horsepower. In addition, the process helps balance airflow. With less runner-to-runner variation, cylinders receive equal amounts of air and fuel, resulting in a better balanced and smoother running engine. To achieve these types of results in the past, hand-working the intake manifold often required that the manifold be cut, polished, then re-welded back together. With PowerFlow, the special abrasive is forced through the entire manifold without cutting. The PowerFlow process depends on three elements: the tooling, which holds the parts and confines and directs the media flow; the machine, which hydraulically controls the extrusion pressure, flow volume, and flow rate; and the media, which determines the pattern and aggressiveness of the abrasive action. Depending on the piece being worked, the media can be extruded in one direction or extruded back and forth from one media cylinder to another. The viscosity of the media is specially formulated. It must be stiff enough to hold the abrasives and cut the stock, yet flexible enough to flow completely through complex shapes. For PowerFlow, silicon carbide abrasive is typically used in sizes ranging from 10,000ths to 40,000ths of an inch. The amount of metal removed from a part depends on the condition of the original casting. Typical stock removal ranges from 30,000ths to 60,000ths of an inch. Today, the Extrude-Hone process is used to polish, radius, and deburr selective automotive, marine, and aviation parts. Extrude-Hone PowerFlow, a high-performance process with high-performance results. We've looked at how airflow has improved entering and moving through the engine. Let's take a look at some of the exhaust system improvements. The exhaust system gases enter a clamshell tubular style manifold which incorporates close coupled catalytic converters and exit through an increased diameter outlet into larger diameter pipes as seen in this illustration chart. The exhaust then splits into a quasi-dual style specially tuned muffler system. This less restrictive system decreases back pressure and reduces power losses by approximately 40%. This translates to increased performance as well as a unique exhaust note that enthusiast drivers crave. In summary, the airflow changes that SVT has made to the Contour's 2.5-liter 24-valve V6 all contribute to achieving an amazing 195 horsepower. Another way of thinking about this, try getting 390 horsepower out of a 302 V8.
In addition to the air management changes made to the 2.5-liter engine, SVT has also made a number of other improvements to both internal and external engine components. The camshaft has received both improvements to the primary and secondary lobes. On the intake cam, duration has increased from 244 degrees to 250 degrees on the primary lobe, and from 250 to 258 degrees on the secondary lobe. This results in a flatter torque curve over both low and high RPM, increases horsepower, and provides a smoother port transition throughout the RPM range. The lower intake has also received modifications. The intake bores have been increased by 2 millimeters, 19-pound injectors, and a 55 psi regulator are used. More air and fuel entering the engine means more horsepower. With the increased airflow entering the engine, we're able to bump the compression ratio from 9.7 to 10:1. This is done by raising the piston dome and results in both torque and horsepower gains. EEC5 system considers airflow, fuel flow, and other engine variables, including the new 60mm throttle body, 7mm mass sensor, larger port throttles, new intake and exhaust cams, 19-pound injectors, and a 55-pound regulator. All of these revised inputs result in a new calibration and a recommendation of premium fuel. With the increases in horsepower and performance, the 2.5-liter high output generates more heat. To remove the heat, SVT made several changes to the cooling system. These improvements include the addition of an oil cooler. The oil cooler is sandwiched between the engine block and oil filter. We've also increased the size of the radiator core from 28 mm to 42 mm. European-style 2-speed fans have been added and a larger grill opening has been installed in the front valence. This routes additional cooling air through the radiator. To couple the increased horsepower to the Contour's short-throw 5-speed MTX transmission, changes have been made to the clutch. The disc includes new springs and friction material. This improves NVH. The pressure plate has revised springs and fingers. This handles increased horsepower of the engine and improves clutch engagement. Flywheel has had over 2 pounds of weight removed. This can be seen in the outer and inner rims. This reduces the rotating inertia and allows the engine to rev up quicker. In summary, SVT has improved a number of powertrain systems on the 2.5-liter 24-valve V6, air and fuel management, internal components, cooling, and the clutch. This results in a world-class high-output engine with loads of torque and 195 horsepower.
The new 1998 Contour has a McPherson strut front and a quad-link rear suspension. Numerous chassis changes were made by SVT to optimize the Contour's handling, balance, responsiveness, and overall feel, while maintaining the car's aggressive stance and lowered appearance. Both the front and rear coil springs have been retuned. This was done to achieve a firm handling suspension while eliminating the harshness often associated with high-performance cars. This was accomplished by modifying the wire diameter of the springs and their load characteristics. The SVT Contour uses struts in both the front and rear. Both the front and rear struts have had their valving and damping curves modified. This matches the struts perfectly to the new spring rates of the car, which maximizes the performance feel and eliminates harshness. The SVT Contour has both front and rear anti-roll bars. The front bar was modified to increase the steering response on turn-in and provide better feedback to the driver. We chose the Goodyear Eagle GSC tire for the SVT Contour. They are a 205, 55, 16-inch size and are Z-speed rated to handle the car's 143 mile-an-hour top speed. The tread pattern is an asymmetric and unidirectional design. The asymmetric design puts a lot of rubber on the outside of the tire and improves handling. The unidirectional design forces water to the outside of the tire, improving wet weather handling and stopping. The GSC tire was chosen after extensive testing on dry, wet, snow, and ice-covered roads. Time tests were run measuring high-speed handling, acceleration, braking, lane changes, road noise, high temperature, and skid pad performance. Having been personally involved in all this testing, I can assure you this is the best tire for the car. The SVT Contour has a unique and aggressive 5-spoke wheel. It measures 16 inches in diameter, 6.5 inches in width, and has 49.5 millimeters of positive offset. It also has a special SVT center cap. The open design does a great job of showing off the 4-wheel disc brakes and does help in brake cooling. The Contour uses ventilated 4-wheel discs with ABS. SVT upgraded the front brakes to larger European components to handle the SVT Contour's 143 mile-an-hour top speed. The front rotors are 278 millimeters in diameter, up from the 260 millimeters for the SE model. This changes the braking swept area. The additional mass also increases the heat capacity of the rotor, which aids in dissipating heat when stopping. Both the front and rear rotors also have been dacrymat plated to enhance their appearance. The pads have been modified to enhance performance under high-speed braking, but remain effective at low temperatures as well. Lastly, a new front caliper design was incorporated to work with the larger rotors and new pads. The suspension and brake system enhancements on the SVT Contour result in a car that's sure-footed, handles great, and has a ride that makes it a pleasure to drive, even over long distances.
Our original vision for SVT was to have cars that represent a balance between sophistication and competent vehicle dynamics, the kind of car that an enthusiast would enjoy driving. And by that measure, the SVT Contour is a perfect embodiment. It builds from a good foundation, the CDW 162, and we add the sophistication of the engine. The engine likes to rev. It has good vehicle dynamics, good braking. So we think it's an appropriate next representative of the SVT product line. I had a chance last year to spend a couple of days driving on the Angeles Crest Highway, which is just east of Los Angeles, and it's a wonderful place to drive cars. And in that drive, I became convinced that this car was going to be a very exciting product for us. The handling was competent. The engine seemed to like revving, so instead of feeling like you were straining the thing to get it to go, it seemed to want to go. The braking was very competent, good progression. And the thing I liked most of all about it was the combination of the clutch and the engine was a perfect example of the kind of smooth modulation that will make an average driver seem like a good driver instead of the other way about. So I was very impressed with the car, and it's actually improved a bit since then, but I would have been satisfied with it even in that prototype phase.
Well, I think the exciting thing is it's an expansion of our product line. We started 5 years ago with the Mustang. We've been gradually upgrading that product. We're having a great year with the Mustang Cobra again. And this allows us to expand into another part of the marketplace where we haven't been. We've got a truly European type of sports sedan. So I think we've greatly expanded the line. We've done a lot of customer research. As Neil indicated, we've looked at the type of ride handling performance that people are looking for in this particular type of product, very different than Mustang. And I think the special vehicle engineering team led by Neil has really responded to what the customers asked for. Well, when we first raised the issue with Alex Trotman probably about 6 years ago when he was running Ford North America, we were really looking for a way to demonstrate that Ford could take low volume products and through attention to certain customer requirements do niche or low volume vehicles and do them in an excellent manner to demonstrate that Ford had a very nimble capability to respond to what people wanted in the marketplace in lower volume. To have drivers' cars that people would appreciate. And then we've put that together with a very unique dealership experience in terms of how customers are treated when they come in to look at the vehicles, how the vehicles are serviced, and I think it's been extremely successful in building the image of what Ford and Ford dealers really stand for.
SVT offers a number of unique opportunities for us. One of them is we can try new ideas at low volume. It gives you a chance to try things out. Another area that SVT has provided for us as a place for enthusiasts, performance-oriented engineers, to focus their attentions on a product that they would be proud to drive and are excited to provide for Ford. And third, it gives us a chance to try some things, refinements and developments that you'd be a little reluctant to do. A good example of that is on the Cobra Mustang. We softened the ride, which was thought to be exactly the opposite of what people would like. But in fact, it was very well received, that it encouraged us to soften the ride on all of our Mustangs. As I mentioned earlier, the development of these vehicles has tended to be a magnet for the performance-oriented car enthusiasts in the company. They call me and volunteer to join the special vehicle engineering group who do the SVT products. And I think the final measure is that we find our performance-oriented enthusiasts leasing and buying these products. And believe me, they wouldn't do that if they weren't convinced that those are the right products.
The commitment the dealers have made since we started SVT and training for their sales personnel to make sure they have very knowledgeable people available when this type of a buyer comes in. They know a lot about the characteristics of the vehicle, not only our vehicles, but competitive vehicles. They can make good comparisons from a very legitimate basis. And then we're very equipped to handle service and parts requirements for these products. And I think it really, as we build that image, it expands our dealers' opportunities for other sports-related parts and service opportunities. I just reinforce what a great success the program's been for us since its original conception 5 years ago. The legitimacy of the vehicles has never been in question since we started working with the press. We knew from day one that we didn't have an overwhelming advertising budget for these vehicles, so they had to be right for the intended market. And then the only way that we could really get that message out to consumers would be to have the major motorsports press evaluate them, agree with us, and carry stories that reinforced our point of view, and they've really done that.
We've striven from the beginning to do competent products, ones that would speak for themselves once driven, and our experiences have been exactly that. The press have driven them, sometimes very critical press, and they have been very supportive. They've become almost an arm of our advertising in their favorable comments about our products. Starting with the Mustang, which in some people's view at that time had sort of reached the end of the line, and we managed to turn that into a really exciting product, and it gave it a whole new life. We happened to have a convertible ready just at the moment we needed an Indianapolis pace car. It became the pace car. And we've done a couple of low-volume Cobra Rs, which R stands for racing, obviously, and those have done very well. The Lightning truck has done well, and I think those are significant highlights. I think this SVT Contour is going to be a great next product, and I'm excited to get one myself.
The highlights have been from the beginning. We've really matched what customers want in developing products. As Neil mentioned, we actually softened the suspension in the Mustang, even though we thought internally that we shouldn't be going that way, but we went out to the marketplace, we talked to customers. There have been several product ideas, and talking to customers we decided not to do. So we've had that, we've really had that discipline. Unless we have a legitimate product for this marketplace, we're not going to do it. In terms of the Mustang, I think the Cobra R offerings, we've had 2 of them, and I think Neil and I'd like to do another one in the future, but they've been real smashing successes. In fact, we've had far more orders than we could actually build when we've offered them. I think the last thing that's most exciting, the Mustang Cobra we're selling today, and looking into the future, the plans that Special Vehicle Engineering has coming down the road, says that we're only a third or a fourth of the way down the road to what this car is going to be as we get down year by year into the future and unfold the growth of the Mustang Cobra.
The primary direction we set in developing the SVT Contour was to produce a car with great performance feel and true long-distance capability. We were trying to produce a European touring car in the classic sense. The primary strengths of the SVT Contour are definitely the powertrain and the chassis. The powertrain is truly exceptional. We've produced an engine which makes the highest brake specific power output of any Ford normally aspirated engine, and the chassis I think is a classic combination, building on what was an exceptionally good chassis anyway. We've refined it to produce a car that understeers less and is a car that the enthusiast can really enjoy driving, but at the same time we've maintained a very supple ride, producing the ability to drive the car for long periods of time. I think the main challenge that we met in the development process of the SVT Contour was very definitely enhancing the powertrain. To produce the power levels that we've got to has taken a considerable amount of thought and work and effort on the part of the SVE powertrain team, and also with a lot of assistance from Ford mainstream engine engineering. The overall character of the car is definitely that of a touring car in the classic European terms. It's a car that you can drive all day and feel fresh at the end. It's a very free revving, willing powertrain, comfortable seats, good driving position. The vehicle really builds on a sound start, the basic Ford Contour, and takes it to perhaps a new limit for the experienced, enthusiastic driver.
You look back in the history of the automobile, and you know there were great sort of takeoffs of production lines. The Renault Gordini. You know, Gordini was a tuning firm that specialized in enhancing the performance of a Renault. What did John Cooper do for the Mini Cooper and the Austin Cooper? They turned it into the Mini Cooper S, the Austin Cooper S, which even today is a very valuable commodity because it created such a reputation. You know, I think the same thing holds true. Again, we talk about Alpina to BMW, AMG to Mercedes, Mugen to Honda, TRD now, which is doing more and more things with Toyota. I mean, there's a reason for all of this because models of this nature represent the best of what that manufacturer can produce. And obviously it can only produce it in limited numbers because of just the difficulty. It's not a production line item in a lot of respects. But it's those things that I think give a manufacturer a hallmark or something that they can hang their hat on and say this is our attempt at producing a special version, and you know, by doing the job correctly, I think it pays off in the short term and long term for an automobile manufacturer.
You could make the case that the first one was the 49 Oldsmobile 88, where General Motors took essentially a Chevrolet size and weight car and stuffed a nice 5-liter overhead valve V8 in, and it was really quick. A similar engine went into Cadillacs the same year, and you may recall that in 1950, let's see, Oldsmobile won the Carrera Panamericana with a Cadillac second. Briggs Cunningham took a Cadillac to Le Mans, finished 10th. Kind of a strange looking car to have running there. But these cars had a lot of torque and a lot of horsepower, and they were great straight line cars. They weren't much in terms of the agility that we think of as a sports sedan having. You could almost call it like torque versus the ability to engage in transitions of speed, direction, all that sort of thing. Well, under the transitions heading, Fiat in 1953 introduced a new 1100 to replace what had been a pre-war carryover, and it was quite a nice four-door, short, square-cut car, but plenty of room for a family and luggage. And the following year, in '54, they introduced what I would consider the first post-war true sports sedan. They called it the 1100 TV, Turismo Veloce. It had about 53 horsepower, which was, for cars of that category, a lot for the time. It was an 80-mile-an-hour car. It had nice aluminum alloy brake drums. So that was really the first sports sedan, and I think they defined a lot of things very well. It was a tall car, tall and narrow. Why tall and narrow? Well, if it's tall, you sit up well, have a good driving posture. You really have a better view of the road than if you're very close to it. If you're coming over a little rise, maybe have a little better glimpse of what's there. If it's narrow, and when you meet the unexpected, there's just less car to thread the needle with. We always used to make a joke running the Mille Miglia in Italy that the next development we needed was thin paint to help those hero passes. But anyway, that was the Fiat 1100 TV, which was really probably the first sports sedan, followed very closely by, in '54 or '5, the announcement of the Alfa Giulietta Berlina. Now that came along with some sports cars, and that spawned in the Alfa brand a whole series of really nice, fast, agile sedans. The Giulietta Berlina, then following that the Giulia Super, which people still love, and then after that a car they called Alfetta that didn't do very well in America. Well, actually it probably didn't do very well in Europe either because the build quality was awful. But then they came with the Milano, not the prettiest car ever made, but fast, nice driving position. And even now in the 164s, the driving position, the cars have gotten a little bit wider, but not too wide, but the driver sits vis-a-vis the rest of the car in a very commanding position with a very nice view forward of the road, and again, the ability to travel very quickly in tight spots. And when you do a little fast motoring in, say, Italian country conditions, you're always at risk of coming upon a very tight spot at way too high rate of speed. So yeah, you're forever coming upon something unexpected at a high rate of speed. You have to scrub off the speed or get through a hole that's not quite big enough or not as big as you'd like it to be. And you find if you engage in that kind of driving in America, the same things happen. So a car that's really controllable and easily controlled, puts the driver at ease, is a big benefit. Now you can think of a lot of other cars that sort of followed this pattern. The BMWs, the 1500s that came out in 1961, and then that evolved into the two-door 1600s. The Saab 99s and 900s are always tall, narrow cars. Good posture, plenty of room. They can be plenty boxy, so they have a lot of passenger room. They're always very good at the transitions, turning, stopping, accelerating, negotiating tight spots in the road, which, if you have the ability to handle the tight spots, you know, the old thing, never lift. Well, you can never lift, but sometimes you can come pretty close if you can handle the car.
Today, Shelby American is a pretty good-sized business. We're building Cobras for racing and for fun. and our coupes are getting ready for another season and another crack at those red Ferraris. We've got a couple of new entries in our stable this year, the new Mustang-based GT350 and the first American car of its kind, the new Ford GT. This GT350 is a racing version of Ford's Mustang 2+2. We set the cars up for racing by installing special components, racing shocks and so on. We're doing a lot of testing as well. Here's something else that we're excited about. It's this new Ford GT. It was designed and built by Ford engineers as kind of a laboratory on wheels to test new ideas and prove Ford's capabilities in open competition. We've been given the job of testing this new car and racing internationally. A lot of work goes into preparing the cars for each separate race. Each circuit's a little different. Daytona, for instance, has bank turns and Sebring's as flat as a pancake. So we set up the cars a little differently, changing spring rates and shock adjustments. Finally, you can't do any more tinkering. The cars qualify for places, and then it's time to put your reputation on the line. You might think there's not much you can do after the start of an endurance race, but remember, we run as long as 24 hours and cover up to 3,000 miles flat out. Cars and drivers take incredible punishment. Fatigue sets in, both human and mechanical. We have to make corrections during pit stops, and we constantly change the driving strategy according to the track conditions and our position with regards to competition. By the middle of the afternoon, the pace is just too hot for some and the field begins to thin out. And now the durability of our engines and components pay off. And we're running 1, 2, 3, 4. Twilight, night, and round they go. And still the GTs and Cobras hold up. Finally, one more lap, and then it's all over. And the big board places the overall winner, and yours truly is back in the winner's circle, along with Ford and 2 great drivers.
On the racetrack, you're making compromises to get optimum speed, to get the last few tenths of a second out of an automobile. What you're looking for on the street is something that you can drive for hours and hours and feel very, very comfortable. Not that that's not what you want to do in a race car, that's the optimum you can do in a race car. But a race driver is willing to compromise his own comfort to go faster. And you can't sell cars that way. They're 2 totally different functions. So a sports sedan has to be something that you can drive all day long and feel comfortable in and get out at the end of the day and feel good. A race car, you're going to give up a lot in terms of comfort and visibility and to extract the most in the performance of the automobile just to go faster.
What we've been brought up on measurements like 0 to 60 and like cornering, G-forces and all that sort of thing, which are probably very valid in terms of being able to write a road test and publish some numbers. And some of those things are very valid under racetrack conditions where the course is the same every lap around, but in real world conditions, you really have to have a car that's very able under a wide range of things, and maybe you don't have the highest ultimate cornering ability, but you have a chassis that just tells you everything. And you can just feel the car, and you sit in the car right, the car telegraphs all the good messages to you. You can hear what's going on, so you don't have Lexus/Cadillac silence. I mean, that doesn't really help you too much. So if the car gives you all the messages and does all the right things or the things you hope it'll do in these transitions of accelerating, braking, cornering, handling indifferent surfaces, and then all these things that happen all at once. approaching a turn that's a little bumpier than you wish it was, and you're going a little faster, and maybe there's a little dew on the road, and all these things have happened, and it's awfully nice if you can gather it all up and get through the turn without sliding off into the bushes. And then, you know, once you're over that little moment, you want to get out on it again and be off, and you want the right gear spacing and, you know, a nice, I mean, gears will take you from here to there without always being a little too short or a little ill-spaced or whatever. And I mean, these are all things I think go into a proper sports sedan, and it's not just 0 to 60 and their ability in an autocross or something like that. I think very little of that translates into driving on the road. I think a car has to have a very supple suspension, good suspension travel. You don't want to be bottoming. You don't want it to be so tied down that it's jiggly. You can have some suppleness and still have a very controllable car.
I think that you have to have something that has excellent transition, primarily because you're working in traffic. If you're driving in town, we've got all these different things that we're doing. And then also the car can't be too darty, because when you get it out on the open road, you've got to be able to kind of be able to put it on autopilot and cruise along without having to keep hurting it all the time. So there's a fine line between just exactly how much hands-on you want with the car and how much comfort and drivability the car gives to you. So you have to be able to extract that if you want it, and yet you have to have the comfort for driving it for a long period of time where the car feels good on its own. I think the most important thing is, of course, predictability and comfort, that you can push the car to the point where you're feeling like you're going fast, and yet there's still a good comfort level that the car doesn't feel so twitchy that you're feeling that it's going to get away from you. So if you can run quickly and feel comfortable with the car and relax, that gives you the capability of running for long hours at a time and getting out of the car refreshed. Some cars are so twitchy that they require constant attention. They are faster in the end, but that's not really what you need on the street, because you're not worried about really tenths of a second and how quickly you're going to go, but how fast you can go for a long period of time.
In the same way we focus so much on 0 to 60, everybody, especially the American industry and to a large extent the Japanese industry, have aimed at total silence as an ideal. And it seems to me that, at least for my taste, I don't care about total silence, but I do care about the quality of the noise. And if the noise level is not too high, a nice quality mechanical noise. You don't want to hear the suspension working too much. You don't want to hear the awful thrashiness of four-cylinder American motors. But I mean, noises come from a lot of places. I think wind noise is something you clearly want to get rid of altogether. And you know, squeaks and rattles and weird little body noises you don't want. And you certainly don't want clumsy, noisy suspension workings. But if the motor makes a little noise and tells you it's there, that to me is sort of nice. And you know, I guess there are two kinds of noise that come out of the motor. There's an exhaust note, and there's been a lot of attention paid to that. I think about half the development time in a Miata went into the exhaust note, and that was okay. They got it pretty right. And then there are the other under-hood mechanical noises, which, if they are pleasant, sort of quality machinery kind of noises, they're okay. Where did that all start? That all started with Harley Earl. And if you look at a 1937 Oldsmobile, the 6-cylinder had one grill and the 8-cylinder had a better grill. And then all that was taken on to probably the cleverest thing ever was either the fins on Cadillacs or the portholes on Buick. So it was 3 holes, it was the budget car, and 4 holes, you were the macho guy. And so then, but that was all kind of out front, like the big Bazoom bumper guards and all that stuff. And then, then we got into a little more subtle period, so you'd look for the little M3, or if it was a Renault Dauphine, it said Gordini on it. You knew that was the good one. Or we talked about the Fiat 1100, that said 1100 TV. You knew you were going to get blown away when the guy got on it. So the indicators got smaller and more subtle. You probably want the body to be pretty simple, but wheels and tires have become one of the big distinguishing issues. I mean, you don't want your car on wimpy, skinny little tires, and the wheels might as well look nice. They're such an important design element in the car. And so then the question is, how aggressive do you make them? There's a lot of aesthetic choices there. How wide do you want the tires on the road car? Do you want them so wide they tram line? I don't think so. If you drive some of the last RX-7s, they make you crazy. I mean, they're all set up for gymkhanas, but no fun to drive on the road. I mean, that tram lining is the worst. It's really annoying. The car should be really tightly drawn is the main thing, and with wheels and tires that convey the intended message, and please, wheels and tires that fill the holes that the designers left for them. I mean, if the hole is too big and the little tires in there, it doesn't look very good. You want the engine to feel very willing and strong and able, and I guess have a pretty wide rev band where it's making some power, so it doesn't run out of breath at 4 grand or something like that. And it's nice if there's a little torque low down. I don't think that's the most important thing, but I think that's individual buyer tastes.
I think one of the most significant changes that we've seen over the years is the switch from rear drive cars to front drive platforms. And it's really a matter of economics. I don't think that there's anything other that it's a cheaper, more efficient platform to build. I don't necessarily agree with it. I prefer a rear drive car myself. But it's surprising how refined the front drive cars have become, and in running them on a race car, on a race course, especially on a tight circuit, you can really keep the times pretty close together. But for a medium performance car and an everyday driver, I don't think there's really much difference. It's a very, very efficient package. It can be made to work really well. The speeds have obviously shown very, very well in the European British Touring Car Championship. You can get a lot of performance out of those cars if necessary.
Let's talk about front and rear drive and go back a generation. When Eric Carlson won the Monte Carlo Rally a couple of times with Saabs, it was attributed to front-wheel drive. And Citroens are always thought to be very avant-garde and technologically superior because of front-wheel drive. And when the Oldsmobile Toronado came out in 1966, it was really an incredible car. I think if you talk about front and rear-wheel drive, it doesn't really matter which is the driven end of the car. What really matters is how whatever other problems inherent to either approach, how well those problems are solved. So certainly a superior front-wheel driven car is better than a mediocre rear-wheel driven car, and vice versa. The fact that Mercedes-Benz and BMW seem to have become the models of what really high-grade cars should be, the fact they are both rear drive, I don't know if that's what that proves, if anything.
I think the Japanese have tended to go to a much broader market than some of the European or American versions in an effort to have larger sales. So I think they've compromised the cars, they've softened them up a little bit more, and that goes both mechanically and visually. I think that we've reached a point with a lot of the Japanese design where the similarity is so close in the package and the overall look of the car that it's very, very difficult, even for somebody who's a car freak like myself. And I'm going, is that a Nissan or is that a Toyota? If it goes down the road at night, you can't really spot the differences between those cars. They've gotten so similar that there's no real character left to them. And I think to a certain extent the drivability and the sensitivity of the driver has been compromised as well. I realize that may reach a broader market for the person who's buying the car as an appliance just for transportation and just wants to get in and start it in the morning and wants the most comfortable car at a slow speed. It's not a very interesting car to drive, but certainly reliable, comfortable, nice automobile, but boring. So there's a lack of character in those cars that I think they've been overworked. And I think that some of the European and some of the American cars now have a little bit more character to them and are more desirable from that standpoint.
I suppose my favorite Japanese is the Nissan Maxima. To me, that's a 164, just from a different point of origin. I guess if you were being just brutally honest, you'd have to say the Maxima is a better car than the Alfa, except that the Italians haven't learned how to make leather look like vinyl yet, and a few things like that. I mean, the Nissan probably is, well, they are, all of the Japanese cars are so smooth and seamless. People say they have no character. Well, I mean, does that mean that character implies big differences in ability in the different systems of the cars? You have big strengths and big weaknesses, and that equates to character? And that's one possible conclusion. But a lot of the Japanese are pretty nice.
Japanese, for example, have taken the European concept on a sports sedan. I'd say primarily starting with the BMW 2002, and the Japanese answer to that, of course, was the 510 sedan. Those two cars were very similar in engineering makeup, with the difference that the 510 was about 1/4 the price, but really fully developed, it was an equal of the car. Certainly the overall solidity and the quality wasn't in the car, but it could be put in if necessary if you wanted to accessorize the car. So they were able to extract the basic engineering, the seating, the positioning on the car, the drivability, and put that into an inexpensive version and then accessorize that car upwards as the years went on with more horsepower, more speeds in the transmission, better wheels and tires, better interior, so that we ended up with a car that was certainly the equal of the BMW 2002.
You've come a long way in America in terms of more sophisticated tastes, and you can look at restaurants. Go from Seattle to LA, there are more espresso bars than there are gas stations. And there's a lot more sophistication in the kinds of cars we buy. And yes, I think that, really, if you look at the plain vanilla cars, who wants them? I mean, rental car fleets. But no real people want those plain vanilla cars. Everybody wants something besides plain vanilla, and one flavor besides plain vanilla is alive and sporting. Who is that person who buys the performance-oriented car, whether it be a BMW, a Saab, Audi, or maybe a domestic product? And I think it's easy to fall in that, who is that person? You know, there are a bunch of individual people with their individual hopes and fears and aspirations and all of that, and I suppose there is some commonality, but I sense sort of a danger in trying to define it too neatly and too tidily for fear you might miss something. But the person certainly wants a lot of satisfaction from driving the car, and they want probably some level of recognition and differentiation. You know, it's like a guy'd wear a funny shirt. He wants people to look at him. Right? Nothing personal.
That's okay.
One of the problems is that people who like cars want some sort of instant recognition, so the car has to be differentiated in some way. If it's only the fourth porthole on the Buick or the Z28 on the Camaro or something like that. And so I suppose, you know, it's got to be people who fit into a certain age group that are most likely to go for a techie's car and a performance person's car, and probably someone who figures that you get better dollar value in a domestic product, so they're not going to be ripped off by the purveyors of snobism, right? And so there's all that stuff. But I think it's very important that you give some very tasty and tasteful styling cues, so that if I've bought your car, everybody knows it without me really shouting about it, but I want it to say what it says. And that's assuming it has to do what it does, but yeah, you want it to say something. Hopefully without wings. Really? Good.
You saw it.
Yeah, but, I mean, there could always be the wing package, you know. Could be a special thing in the Jacksonville zone, you know.
Don't look at just because you might make an extra couple $100 on the deal. Why is this of value to that person? Does he live in the country? Does he do a lot of travel? Does he put a lot of miles on a car? Is he a performance-oriented person to begin with? Is he technically oriented to begin with? And I think once you put things in people's terms instead of your own, and you really go forward and try to what I would say actively sell rather than passively sell. In other words, don't just throw it out there like, oh, well, there's an option here and you can do it if you want. If not, don't worry about it. You know, go out and sell it. Explain why it's better. The automobile itself, whether it's a VTEC or, for example, years ago, Prelude had the four-wheel steer, which to the general consumer, they don't understand the value to the four-wheel steer. They see the cost of the option, which was quite expensive. I believe it was around a $2,000 option, and for most people they just didn't understand, or they couldn't understand or accept why that would be worth $2,000. But for an aficionado, someone who is technically driven, someone who understands the value of in this case four-wheel steer, they're more than willing to accept the idea that yes, it costs a little bit more, but the return that I'm going to get in terms of driving performance or safety or what have you is just worth it and then some. The type of customer that's going to look for this car obviously is performance driven, and because he's reading the car magazines, the Road and Tracks, the Car and Driver, you name it, the specialty magazines, and he's read the articles. He's going to want to see for himself what, if in fact this car has lived up to the press response. And, I think the first thing is, with that person, he's a sophisticated person, or she's a sophisticated person, in the sense that they're there to look for a performance car that, gives them what they want from an everyday standpoint, but at the same token satisfies their needs for having a car that is different and performs differently than the norm. And the salesman or salesperson should have a very easy time showing the horsepower increase, the fact that the brakes are different, therefore more capable, the fact that the tires are different, allowing better grip levels, what have you. You sell the features. and the features will, when you put it all together, the features are going to say this car, yes, it's several $1,000s more than a regular Contour, I guess, depending on the pricing, but look what you're getting for that. And again, it lives up to the bill of sale. It's not stripe, it's not cutting corners. It's a real effort to produce a technically different car and a technically more capable car. And I think, you know, the performance buyer, as I said, he's very sophisticated, and you can't snow him. You can't pull the wool over his or her eyes. We represent Honda, Toyota, Lexus. We're also going to be opening a Mercedes-Benz dealership in 1997 in the Pittsburgh market, which we're excited about. We've won the top awards from Lexus, Toyota, Honda for CSI, TSI as Honda calls it, sales service. We've ranked generally first or second in our area, in our zone, or respective district. I've worked very hard as a driver and as a team owner to develop a level of credibility and respect and legitimacy within the industry. I don't think there's a question that our dealerships and the people that work within them understand that that is our hallmark, our culture, our reason for being. Whether it's the people washing cars after every service call or what have you, that there's a reputation that we have to live up to, and it's an honesty, and it's a reputation of forthrightness and of dotting our I's and crossing our T's and honestly dealing with people. And that's even more important when you deal with performance-oriented people, because their expectations, I think, are higher than regular John Q. public. Because if they're going to spend more money for a performance option, whether it's a set of wheels, whether it's different tires, different shock absorbers, springs, you name it, it better live up to its billing, or they're going to be very unhappy. You better know your stuff, and you'd better deliver the goods, because if you don't, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose that credibility that they're placing in you, and I think it's pretty hard to get people back once that happens. The SVT Contour is a performance car, and the other two, although capable of performance, really were trying to answer different needs as well. I think the SVT is for a guy who wants to have a performance car, and maybe he's got a family, so he's got to bring a kid, two kids, a kid, whatever, his wife, or it'll satisfy the family needs he's got. But when he's by himself, or when he's out driving around for fun, I mean, he still has a performance car underneath him, and I was impressed with that. And as I said, it lived up to the design, I think, in the sense of what was the goal here. And as I say, the gear spacing's correct, it accelerates quickly, the engine's very responsive, very good brakes, no bad habits that I could see in driving, and none of them have bad habits, but again, we're talking about a car that is quite a bit less expensive. So all in all, I thought it was a lot of value for money, frankly. BMW smoothness of the six-cylinder, renowned for that, I think is one of the, if I were to identify three traits that I found attractive in both BMW, there's no question it's the engine. I think the ergonomics of the BMW, it's much more of a wraparound feeling for the driver. The seat is a tighter fitting seat. but everything is canted, angled towards the driver, and that's nice for the driver to have everything where it's within easy reach. And I think probably the next thing would be very smooth gearbox, probably. The Audi, I thought overall gave me a great sense of confidence in driving it over rough roads. That impressed me. Another thing that impressed me was its ability to absorb road imperfections, and whether it was rough road or whether it was off camber aspects. Just a lot of confidence that came out of that. The damping, I thought, whether it was spring shock combination, was quite good. Probably, I guess the only other thing in the Audi that really struck me was just that it was a very nice, complete car, a nice package. Did not have the best engine by any means, had the least powerful engine, but a very nice handling car. And I think Contour, the top three would be engine, really impressed me. The ride, the handling, the levelness of the chassis over the road, I thought, fast corners and slow corners was quite good. And I just felt that I would probably say I felt the brakes would be the number three thing, that very, very capable braking. We did not do panic stops or things of that nature, but we aggressively drove it on roads, and I was quite impressed with all three of those aspects, but particularly the engine drivetrain combination were quite good.
It's got the power we need, the braking's fantastic, the handling's just what it needs, and then the looks with the interior, I mean, it's going to be a home run. When consumers drive that car, they're going to fall in love with it more and more and more and more.
The powertrain on the new SVT Contour is very responsive. I think that when our prospective customers get in it, they'll be very impressed with the performance of it. Not only the power, but the handling. The real challenge, I think, is just to get the people in the Contour and experience it, because it definitely, against the Audi and the BMW, it'll stand up. In fact, I'm more impressed with especially the ride of the vehicle, the handling characteristic of it, and it certainly has plenty of power.
The styling cues are much sportier than either one of those cars, so I think you've got it all embodied in that. Definitely, it sets it off. It doesn't make it look like a grocery getter now. It looks like a sporty car. Putting the fairing on the bottoms lowered the car down visually, and the exhaust tips and the valance on the back. I think it's brought the whole car together to give it that sporty look.
As you've now seen, we've designed our Contour Sports Sedan to live up to the SVT hallmarks of performance, substance, exclusivity, and value. In addition, there are 5 key messages we'd like to leave with you today about the SVT Contour. It's a true European-bred sports sedan. The SVT Contour is based on the highly praised Ford CDW 27 platform. Its sister car, the Ford Mondeo, competes on Europe's motorways and racetracks against the likes of Alfa Romeo, Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Opel. Its exclusive high-output 195 horsepower engine. Our unique version of the 2.5-liter Duratec V6 offers a world-class specific output of 77 horsepower per liter, more than that of the Audi A4 5-valve and the BMW 328i. In fact, the only naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engines sold in America that offer more are the 3-liter V6 in the Acura NSX and the flat-6 engines built by Porsche. It's a performance and luxury value. The SVT Contour is a richly appointed 5-passenger driver's sedan that sells for less than comparably equipped Audi A4 and BMW 328i models. It's fun to drive. The SVT Contour offers the balance of a potent engine, a short-throw 5-speed manual transmission, a tenacious yet supple chassis, stout disc brakes, and a driver's environment that invites spirited yet comfortable grand touring. It's enthusiast-focused, SVT-certified Ford dealers. The SVT Contour is sold by specially trained dealers who understand the discerning driving enthusiast. That's the story of the 1998 Ford SVT Contour, a sports sedan designed and sold by enthusiasts for enthusiasts.